This is Danny Gaffon for ESBR Boxing in Birmingham. It's a pleasure to be joined by S-Jam's Shane Watson. Shane, you're here with Saul Dacres. First of all, tell us what you're expecting from his fight on Saturday night.
I'm expecting a good performance. Saul's coming off some good momentum and some good form after a second round stoppage on Robert Ismay for the English heavyweight title. Unfortunately, this isn't a title fight. We try to push to get it as a Commonwealth silver or even full Commonwealth title as he's South African, Chris Thompson, but unfortunately I don't know what happened with the Commonwealth silver, if I'm being honest, but the full Commonwealth title didn't get approved, which is frustrating. But another good 10 rounder for Saul. Hopefully he can get a stoppage, would be nice, and then we can push on to bigger and better things. Like, he wants to fight for the British and Commonwealth title, he wants to fight Fabio Wardley, he wants to fight the winner of Wardley and Adelaide. I'm assuming that obviously now they're going to be fighting each other. He wants to fight the big guys and the good guys and earn the big money and win the big titles as well. So this should be hopefully his last push before we go on to those kind of title fights. You
touched on some of those other domestic names, your Fabio Wardley, David Adelaide. We've had this whole sort of soap opera around the British title over the past few months, and do you feel as if Saul Dacres is sort of like the dark horse? You don't see his name mentioned that much, but he's got the amateur pedigree, he's impressed a lot as professional. Why do you think even Eddie doesn't really mention Saul with the likes of Fabio Wardley?
Yeah, why do you think they don't mention it? There's a reason for it. I mean, I really like Fabio Wardley, and he's a genuinely really good person and a really good fighter, by the way. How inspiring is his story to come from the unknifing scene to achieve what he's achieved. I have the utmost respect for him. He doesn't avoid or dodge anyone. I just think he probably looks at someone and thinks, that's a very hard night. Stylistically, that's a tough fight for Fabio. A pure, slick boxer. He's got a great chin, a very good engine as well. Stylistically, I think that's a nightmare for Fabio. I think it's a nightmare for them all. David Adelaide wouldn't want to call out and fight Saul either, because that would be probably one of the easiest wins of Saul's career without being disrespectful. Because the reason why I say that, look, he beat Sokolowski with one arm, so easily. Hurt him, almost stopped him actually. If he had two arms, he probably would have stopped him, but he couldn't really put the shots together to get him out of there. Whereas David Adelaide had two very strong arms, and I thought he lost virtually every round against Sokolowski. So, but David Adelaide come off some good form. He's had some good wins since then, so you can't just judge someone on that one performance, but that's the opponent they both have fought, so that's why I'm going off of that. But yeah, I think Saul would beat David Adelaide quite easily. So, but you got to see the winner of that fight first, and Saul's got to win his fight on Saturday night. He's fighting a southpaw. We didn't have a lot of notice it was southpaw either, because we were meant to be fighting an orthodox the whole time, and we got into a southpaw with 2 weeks' notice, so who was fully fit to take another fight. So it's going to be a tough night on Saturday, mostly tough because we've had zero preparation pretty much for a southpaw.
Do you think maybe the onus is then maybe yourself, Saul, potentially Eddie, on building Saul's profile so he doesn't become like the latest member of the Who Needs Him club?
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants that. I mean, you never really in Who Needs Him club as a heavyweight, I think everyone wants to see it.
Like Martin Bakole?
Yeah, Martin Bakole. I mean, that's more his trainer and manager's fault, I think, because when you're saying that you're the undisputed sparring champion of the world and whatnot, and you're leaking stories and sparring footage and that, people ain't going to really want to entertain you. And that, the other part of the problem is the only person that talks for Bakole is Billy Nelson himself. And he doesn't know how to do deals, doesn't know how to negotiate, doesn't know how to do anything apart from maybe train a little bit. But and he's good at losing weight because he's lost a lot of weight recently as well. But yeah, other than that, I think that's probably why people ain't entertaining Martin Bakole. And even more so because he's a tough fight. And he's like trying to become a British heavyweight, but he's not. But I mean, he lived in Scotland for a long time and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. He'll get the fights eventually. But he did lose to Michael Hunter as well. Like, did lose, and he did quit as well. So that probably has a part to play in it. If he went and avenged that defeat, maybe, which I know they're not accepting because they've been offered Michael Hunter a number of times and they keep not entertaining that fight. So maybe if he did, maybe that wouldn't happen. But we'll see.
Moving on from Martin Bakole, we don't need to go down this path again. Just a few other fighters under the S-Jam banner. We saw Florian Marku. It all kicked off between him and Chris Kongo at the Buatsi Aziz press conference. What did you make of all that?
Do you know what? I can't criticise Chris Kongo. He's looking for an opportunity, looking for a payday. He's lost half of his last 4 fights, 50% of his last 4 fights. So he's in a difficult position where boxers probably only want to put him in really good fights as the B-side. And in fairness, Chris Kongo is a very good fighter. I've said that for years. I've really rated him. He's fallen short a couple of times now, once against McKinson and once against Eko Esserman. They're both close fights in fairness to him, but he has lost twice. He hasn't really got a high profile. He's not, I wouldn't say he's a well-known fighter. He's a very good fighter though. that's the problem that I have really, is that no one really knows him, and he's lost half of his last 4 fights, beating Chris Kongo. Unfortunately for Florian and unfortunately for Chris, doesn't really push Florian on or do anything for him. It's not going to make him a pay-per-view star. It's not going to get him a world title shot. It's going to do nothing apart from please a handful of hardcore boxing fans. But the world's a bit bigger than that. So, even saying that, Florian's got a really tough fight before then. I like people are talking about his next fight. Dylan Moran's a very, very tough fighter, man. A lot of people didn't want to fight him. He's a very, very good amateur. He's been a very good professional. He's had one blemish on his record, and I heard that he was really sick going into that fight and he shouldn't have been fighting anyway. So I'm definitely not looking past one of the hardest tests of Florian's career, because that'd be stupid. So, but obviously as a management team, you kind of do look ahead a little bit. But yeah, Chris Kongo won't be in the immediate plans, just simply because nobody really knows who he is to a high caliber, and nobody, other than, like I said, a handful of hardcore boxing fans would really want to see that fight. Like we're looking at like the Adrian Boners and people like that of the world to put Florian in with. He's got the potential to be a mega pay-per-view star. He's got the attitude. He's shown that he's got the ability in some of these fights. He's got the persona. At the end of the day, that's the kind of fights we're looking at. Chris Kongo is a good fighter, but I respectfully don't think it's a fight that's important for Florian right now.
Moving on, Joyce Zhang 2, or Zhang Joyce 2, I should say, getting ever closer. Is the bum starting to go a wee bit?
Yeah, do you know what? It was a disappointing night in April, but you know what? We've got over it now. We've gone back to the drawing board. We've made a lot of changes within the team, a lot of changes within preparation and whatnot as well. And I can tell you, I only landed from Vegas last night, so I'm really jet lagged actually. But hence why I've got a massive can of Monster on the floor. But that Joe is going to do a real job on Zhang. So, like, trust me, when I say a real job, I mean a real job. I always gave Zhang credit before the fight and said it was a really hard fight. Everyone was talking about Furies, Usyk and whatnot, and I knew that Zhang was going to be Joe's toughest test of his career, and he's going to be again. But preparation on a different level. If anyone knows who the Southpaws he's been sparring, ask them how they're feeling right now, man, because they've been getting some heavy work. So, but he's doing really well, and we've still got a long way to go yet. So.
You touched on the preparation, and a lot was made out of how much Joe seemed to struggle with the southpaw backhand of Zhang. Do you notice a difference in this camp, be it the level of southpaw he's had in sparring? Is he just coping it with it better? Do you notice a difference in Joe, say, take your mind back a month out for the first fight compared to now?
Yeah, I mean, he had great preparation last time. I don't think that's really what the problem was. He was sparring ex-world champions, of course, all southpaw, and current world level guys, of course, all southpaw last camp. But there was a bit of lack of preparation in other things in camp, and some other things maybe weren't taken too seriously in camp last time. So we made all the necessary changes as a team that we felt like we needed to be changed, and at the moment in time it's all working and going into place.
Last thing I want to ask you about, Shane, because you've given me plenty of your time, just sticking with the heavyweight division. We saw Anthony Joshua stop Robert Helenius in the 7th round this past weekend. A few sort of concerning aspects of the performance, some people thought. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it was a great finish. I want to give AJ credit for that, and he showed different elements of his style which I found quite impressive. But like, he got his jab popping quite well. He was moving fairly well, but he was still getting caught quite easily. You know, he got caught with the left uppercut, I think 2 or 3 times. Caused a bit of swelling over his right eye, I think it was. Yeah, right eye, so that's that one. And he was getting popped to the jab quite a bit as well. I thought it was quite an even fight going into that round. I thought maybe he had AJ ahead by 1 or something, but it was quite even. And it looked like Helenius was growing in confidence, and probably why he switched off actually. And also not just that, as much as people said he fought the week before, he fought an absolute overweight guy who had an inflated record, who I can guarantee you Helenius didn't have a training camp for. So, you know, and it probably would maybe feeling the pace a little bit as well. He looked like it in the corner anyway, the round before. But yeah, he was growing in confidence, and it was a close fight. And that is alarming in itself, because this is a guy that also got knocked out cold by Washington, and we saw what he did in the fight before. It wasn't impressive, was it? So, and he's been knocked out numerous times, and obviously got poleaxed in 1 round by Wilder. So there are some worries there, I guess, but it's top-level boxing, man. It's not always going to be tied in as clean as you want. Also, it is still only his 2nd fight with a new trainer. But I think he'll go a lot with the confidence of that KO, because now he'll believe that he can let the right hand go, and it's going to be damaging him.
We're hearing a lot about this potential fight with Deontay Wilder in the new year. If it is to be next, how do you see it playing out? A lot of people not giving Joshua much of a chance.
is you can't really give an opinion on this without sounding really disrespectful. By the way, can I just say that I know and I believe that AJ is an absolute elite level heavyweight, but I think stylistically it's one of the worst possible fights for him, and I can't see how he gets out of round 2 or 3.
Shane Watson, thanks very much for your time, mate.
Top man.
Cheers.